Hello, it's me, Leslie Bray-Brewer. Today is Tuesday, April 30th, 2019. This is day 10 of Watch Walnut Cove. Yesterday, day 9, I didn't actually make a live video to tell you it was day 9, but I took a little segment of our Sunday morning service where I talked about some things that are going on in Walnut Cove. And I loaded that yesterday. It was a very brief one, so today I'll try to keep it brief if I can, maybe not. But I just wanted to welcome you back to this video series. It's going to last for 50 days. Watch Walnut Cove again. Since I did one last spring called Watch Walnut Cove. I felt to do it for 50 days because we are counting up to Pentecost. Excuse me, I had lost my voice this week and I've been trying to save it today for this video, but I'm still hoarse. So I want to talk to you from my home in Danbury. You say, well, why are you not in Walnut Cove? I went to Walnut Cove today, couldn't make this video because I had left my camera at home and there was nobody there with a smartphone to video me. So I had to come back home and hope you'll forgive me that I'm not in Walnut Cove, but I've been there today with some exciting things going on. Probably not going to tell these exciting things till tomorrow when I'm back there and somebody can video me on the site. What I want to tell you about tonight, you know, we're not trying to be arrogant here in Walnut Cove saying, watch Walnut Cove, wow. We're all that. No. We're asking you to watch Walnut Cove because we sincerely believe that God is in the midst of just doing something so supernaturally incredible in that town that the world will take notice. We do dare to believe that. We hope that wherever you are, that you're believing for the same thing in your town. We want it in every little town all over the globe, that people are hungry for a move of God and they're believing, why not us? Why not here? So when I ask you to watch Walnut Cove, I'll be telling you, as you know, things going on in Walnut Cove that are exciting. I'm going to start off today by telling you a dream I had a few years back that relates to something that just happened last week in prayer in Walnut Cove. I don't remember the year. I'm going to guess 2014 or 15. I had a spiritual dream. You know, it's one of those you wake up from it and you feel God dealing with you. I had a dream that I saw John F. Kennedy driving the car that he was assassinated in Walnut Cove. Nobody was with him. You know, there was no chauffeur, and he was like, when he was shot, you know, he was up sitting on the back. No, he was driving the car. And the top was down, just like in Houston, I guess it was. Dallas. Forgive me for my lack of historical knowledge here. I really studied the John F. Kennedy assassination a lot. You wouldn't know it, but I did. But nonetheless, in the dream, I knew he had come from the southern end of town, as if he had come from Old Town Road. If you're from Walnut Cove, you'll understand this. Old Town Road is 1st Street, technically. It was as if he had come from the Old Town 1st Street area and turned onto Summit Street. And he came up Summit Street, which is, as you would guess, Summit, the highest street in our town. It was also the town where most of our wealthy people lived years ago. Again, Summit, you know, the people who were the height in our town as far as money and prestige and control of the town maybe. A lot of the families that came in with the railroad years ago, who helped bring the railroad into town, they built houses up there. The man who owned the plantation in Walnut Cove, William A. Lash and his descendants, Dr. Lash, they had some houses up on Summit Street. So John F. Kennedy in that car turned onto Summit Street, but he didn't go very far. He only went from 1st to 2nd Street, riding on Summit, and then he turned down 2nd Street, which is where we are at the well. And as he turned onto 2nd Street, he came by the well. Instead of going all the way past the well to Main Street, he took a right onto what is called High Street. It's most people don't go High Street. Summit Street is again, the height of our town, and then Main Street is on the lower, as far as the lower plane than Summit Street, but those are the two streets people go on a lot of times. High Street is ignored a lot. But John F. Kennedy turned there. I didn't see him anymore because the dream ended, but I knew. Although I never saw it, I knew in the dream He was going to meet Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in our town as well. He was going to meet him at a restaurant that never existed to my knowledge, where Sam's Pizza is. In the back of Sam's Pizza is a parking lot, and there's a couple of houses on each side. In that area of the parking lot and the houses, in my dream, there was a 2-story white house that had been converted into a restaurant that was for the black people in our town. I think about it, John F. Kennedy, this was obviously early 1960s. So that was a time that blacks and whites would not have eaten together in our town. So I knew this restaurant was primarily for black people. And I knew in the dream somehow that it was a Sunday afternoon, perhaps 2 o'clock, that's a guess. But, you know, traditionally in our town, white churches get out around noon, and the traditionally black churches, and we got to break it down into black and white churches. That's not God's will. But the traditionally black churches get out later. And I knew it was in the early afternoon when the black churches were getting out and people might go eat there. I had this sense in the dream that John F. Kennedy was going to meet with Dr. King to work out a civil rights deal. Now, I didn't know the history of the civil rights deal that I think Lyndon B. Johnson later signed into law. But when I went back and studied what happened before John F. Kennedy was assassinated, after the dream I felt to go study, he was actually in the midst of possibly passing some radical civil rights law passing some civil rights acts into law in our country. And he had met with Dr. King about this. Now, there's all these theories as to why somebody assassinated our president then. But one of the theories I read, and a lot of people agreed on this, was that it partially had to do with how he was trying to push civil rights through in this country. And that there were a lot of people, obviously in the early 60s, that didn't like it. White people, of course, I'm assuming, they didn't like it. And that was possibly something that could have led to his assassination. In that dream, actually I forgot to tell you the end of it, that's all I saw of John F. Kennedy, but I knew where he was going. Suddenly, I was hovering in Walnut Cove up on Summit Street. I was overlooking the houses, the nice houses up there, big, beautiful houses that are still there, a lot of them. I was hovering like I was in third person looking down on the houses, and I could see the typical Sunday afternoon in the well-to-do white homes. I saw some maids, some black maids. And you think, well, surely that wasn't the case in the 60s. It was. I have some friends who had relatives who lived on Summit Street back in the 50s and 60s, and there were black maids that worked up there in those white homes quite often. So I could see the black maids, you know, and even though I would think Sunday was a day they didn't work, I did see them, and I actually saw one black maid taking a tray of lemonade. I knew it was lemonade, I could tell it, and I could hear the ice tinkling. So the scene was this beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon in Walnut Cove, and maybe I figured it was about 1962, 63, which was actually, I was born in 62. Seemed as if it was the year I was born for some reason. And I could see the way things were. And I could see that there were hidden things. That's all I know how to say it. There were hidden things in those houses. Everything looked to be proper. There were hidden things. When I finally told that dream, I kept it to myself for a little while because I prayed about it. When I finally told it one night at the well, 2 of my children, I wish they were here with me to tell you because I may get the story wrong. They sort of were like freaked out because one of them had had a dream and one of them had had a vision during prayer. I think I got that right. One of them saw John Wilkes Booth. Go figure. Saw John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated President Lincoln, saw him running in the area of Walnut Cove, and they even saw High Street, and he was running with this frenzied look, like he just didn't know what to do. Well, that just freaked us out when we realized, okay, assassinations. I saw John F. Kennedy, and a lot of people have a lot of the parallels between Lincoln and Kennedy. There's fascinating books written on that subject, too. I went back to study John Wilkes Booth after my child told me I had a vision or a dream of John Wilkes Booth running through Walnut Cove madly, in a frenzy. I went and looked up why he killed President Lincoln. A lot of different theories on that. Obviously, John Wilkes Booth was a Southerner, but he made some statements after Lincoln said, I will try to push for the black people once they're, the Civil War's over. I'll push for them to be able to vote. Now, obviously, Lincoln also had some plans to send black people to Liberia. A lot of people argue that Lincoln wasn't a friend of the black people. In a lot of ways, he definitely was a friend. He had plans to give them the vote. And John Wilkes Booth made some statements at that point that said he won't live to do that. I'll never stand for that. So again, civil rights maybe played a very big role in why President Lincoln was assassinated. Well, my mother, I don't think, knew this dream of mine, which happened several years back. And when we were in prayer this week, she said that when she finished prayer in one of the midday sessions, she said she could feel in the spirit such a difference in Walnut Cove. She said the town, when she grew up, now my mother grew up there in the 40s and 50s. She said in my prayer today, this was a few days ago, she said in my prayer I was going in my mind through all the houses that stood right along this area where the well is, 2nd Street up to Summit. She said I could tell you every house, and I could tell you who lived in each house. Small town, they knew that back then. She said, I also knew there were hidden things going on. She said everything looked proper. They had the wealth, they had the prestige. She said, but almost every house had some hidden things going on that weren't good and that were whispered about, and the town knew about it maybe, but nobody wanted to do much or say much about it because it was our more prestigious citizens. I'm not down in them. I didn't know them. I'm sure a lot of them were great people. But my mother said what she could feel in the prayer session as she almost traveled in the spirit, like back to the old days. And then suddenly she could see it now. She said it's as if that's gone. As if, now there's always people with hidden things. We know that. It's a fallen world. But she said in Walnut Cove, it's as if now things are much more transparent. And Summit Street now is not owned anymore by, only the leaders and prestigious people in our town. My mom said she even thought about the fact that there's a new family that's bought a house that stood vacant for a long time, and they've made it just beautiful. I love riding by it. And she said she heard that they had a party or a gathering for neighbors up and down Summit Street just to come in and just have fellowship. I don't know the details on that. My mother had heard that through the grapevine. But if that's the truth, I thought how beautiful that is. Because I know the people who bought that house, and they're like me, good working class folks, from working class homes. And Summit Street's turned into a very different thing these days than it used to be when I was born. So that I know that Walnut Cove is changing, and that now this great revival we believe to see has to have that foundation of humility, of transparency, of the love of God, that nobody in our town thinks they're better than anybody else, or the wealthy don't rule anymore. And I think that's finally the foundation that's been laid in Walnut Cove through prayer. Things always come spiritually first, and then you see the physical manifestation. If you think the stuff that's happening in Walnut Cove now is just happening because people have formed committees and they're doing good things, not true. It's happening because there's been a prayer effort, intercessory prayer, deep travail for that town for about 20 years now. That's why you're seeing these things happen. So I went longer than I intended, but that's okay. I felt a peace about it. I wanted to tell you these things about Walnut Cove and how it's no longer a place where dark things are hidden the way they used to be. That's a town God can move in. Thank you for watching Walnut Cove. Message us. Let us agree with you for wherever you live. Thank you for agreeing with us about our town seeing a great outpouring of God. I love you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow for day 11. Watch Walnut Cove again.